Hello, I'm David Onley. As the Queen's representative in the province of Ontario, it is my pleasure to introduce you to How May I Help You? A video about accessibility in schools across the province. Before becoming Lieutenant Governor, I had the privilege of chairing the Accessibility Standards Advisory Council of Ontario. As such, I advised the Minister on the most effective ways of implementing the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, and I received reports from the various working committees. In my installation address of September 5th, 2007, I chose accessibility as the overarching theme of my mandate. I have defined accessibility as that which enables people to achieve their full potential, and thus play a meaningful role in the life of this province. But to achieve true inclusion, attitudes towards people with disabilities must change. Attitudes often based on myths and misperceptions. When you meet someone with a disability for the first time, what do you see? The disability or the ability within? We'd all like to say the ability, but we all know it's not true. We see the disability, and there's nothing wrong with that, as long as we don't allow that first impression to then become a value judgment about the person's inherent ability. As educators, you play a pivotal role by influencing and shaping the lives of young people. Oftentimes, you may be the only role models outside of immediate family, making your approach to accessibility all the more important. I hope this video will reinforce the meaningful ways in which everyone benefits from a more accessible environment. Thank you for taking part in this training session. As you will see, accessibility enables everyone to achieve their full potential. Thank you.
Hello and welcome. My name is Carla Robbins and I'm an elementary school principal. Today I'll guide you through an introduction to accessible customer service in Ontario schools. Come on in, let's get started. The training we are about to begin is one of the legal requirements under the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, which became law in 2005. This law has led to the development of 5 standards: customer service, employment, information, and communication, transportation, and the built environment. By fully implementing the standards in these 5 areas, it is expected that Ontario will be accessible by the year 2025. The first accessibility standard to come into effect is in the area of customer service, the topic for today's training. School boards are among the first organizations to implement this standard and must meet all of the requirements set out in the customer service standard by January 1st, 2010. School boards have already begun to deliver appropriate customer service to all members of the school board community, including persons with disabilities. Any business or organization with more than 1 employee must comply with the Act. However, compliance dates vary depending on the standard or sector involved. Training people in your school boards to provide quality, accessible customer service is one of the key elements of this standard. To be clear, the word customer refers to the members of the general public, such as our parents, families, community members who visit or use the services of our schools. While students have long been supported under special education legislation, the customer service standard asks us to train any member of a school board who may serve the general public. This goes beyond training staff to serve students with special education needs. Our goal is to help train your board community to better serve members of the general public who are living with a disability, whether visible or invisible, or of a permanent or temporary nature. By focusing on serving people with disabilities, this training will help you to serve all members of the general public better. This training is aligned with your board's policy and procedures on accessible customer service. Your school board's policies and procedures relate to the sections that follow in this training session. In addition to board policies, you will find quick tip reference sheets that will serve as a reminder of this training going forward. Be sure to ask your manager or principal where the tip sheet can be found at your school or work site. You're now ready to begin the training. You'll need about 30 minutes. To ensure the best learning environment, you might find it helpful to complete the training without interruption. Try to avoid telephone calls and close your email. If the session must be interrupted, you will be able to pick up again near the point you left off.
The Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act 2005 and the accompanying standards are meant to make Ontario accessible by addressing barriers experienced by people with disabilities. 38% of people will experience either a permanent or a temporary disability over the course of their lives. Right now, 53% of Canadians either have a disability or have someone in their immediate family circle who is living with a disability. These statistics make it clear that serving people with a disability is an important issue for our entire society. Take a moment. If necessary, pause the video and imagine what an accessible Ontario might look like in 2025. What could you do in your role in the school board to help make that happen?
A number of factors contribute to the creation of barriers that prevent people with disabilities from participating fully in society. Bias, stereotypes, prejudice, lack of information and awareness, and even sometimes unwillingness are some of the factors that hinder people, organizations, and communities from achieving their full potential. The result? Society does not benefit from the full range of ideas, knowledge, and perspectives that can help with problem solving, creativity, or improving society. Take a moment to consider if any of these factors might be affecting the service you're able to give to the members of the general public. Think about one immediate action you could take that would remove a barrier. All of the requirements described in the first standard, customer service, have been set in law. School boards must fulfill the customer service standard by January 2010, as well as continue to meet the requirements in an ongoing fashion. Let's study the standard itself to learn more about the role we can play to make Ontario more accessible. School boards must have a policy and procedures on providing goods and services to people with disabilities. Both of these should support the key principles of independence, dignity, integration, and equality of opportunity. Procedures must address key aspects of providing quality customer service to persons with disabilities. These include supporting the use of assistive devices, service animals and support persons, communicating in a manner that takes a person's disability into account, providing notice when there are temporary disruptions to facilities or services, such as elevators or audio announcements, relied on by people with disabilities for access, and finally, clearly communicating the practice for charging support persons for admission to events. Because situations, people, and indeed the manner in which disabilities affect people are quite different, this training video will not be able to prepare you for every scenario that you may encounter. Our hope is that this session will help you to meet the needs of people with disabilities, and this awareness will become a part of your customer service mindset. With attention and practice, your approach to customer service will become more inclusive, enabling you to meet the needs of more and more people while sending a clear message that you are ready to accommodate the diverse needs of people related to accessibility. We will use the scenarios that are relevant to your school situation. Let's begin with a common situation in which members of the general public would be present in your school. Remember, the customer service standard deals with interacting with a member of the general public. A school board already has specific responsibilities with regard to staff and students that come under other legal provisions.
Hi, welcome to the school. Nice to see you.
In this scenario, a spring concert is taking place at the school. There is no way to know who will be attending or what they may need.
See you as well too. Welcome to the school.
Thank you very much.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Great. Nice to see you here. Hello. Welcome to the concert.
Thanks.
Hi. Welcome to the concert. Maybe of help.
Yes, we're really excited about the concert. We found out from your website that it's free. Thank you for letting us know. My husband and I just need 2 seats together. If you could direct us, my husband can guide me to my seat.
Certainly, this way.
Thank you.
Welcome to our school, everyone. It's great to have such a wonderful turnout. The staff and students greatly appreciate that you can come to today's performances. Before we begin today's concert, just a few housekeeping announcements. First, the washrooms are located outside the gym door at the back and to your right. An accessible washroom is a bit further down the hallway in the direction of the principal's office. In the event of a fire alarm, please remain calm. Walk in an orderly fashion towards the nearest exit at the back or the front of the auditorium. If you require assistance, please refer to your program for a special note where we may be able to help you. And remember, everyone, we will look after the students. So now, let the extravaganza begin.
The event is the same, but we take a slightly different approach. With a few accommodations, all members of the audience can enjoy the concert.
Outside by the back.
Notice how the principal remembered the key principles of independence, dignity, integration, and equality of opportunity. The principal spoke directly to the person with a disability, not the support person. The oral instructions were inclusive, and the note in the program avoided the necessity to identify individuals, thus respecting confidentiality. The most important phrase is the title, "How may I help you?" The person with a disability knows the most appropriate accommodations for their needs. So asking the question, "How may I help you?" conveys respect and the desire to assist. Use a checklist like this one to help you prepare. Clearly designated accessible parking, accessible entryways and alternate exits, accessible washroom facilities, signage, size of text on program and signs, sound system, provision for service animals, trained volunteers, event announcements in multiple formats, cancellation notice, requesting advance notice in the event of complex accommodations required. Take a moment to consider another event that members of the general public may attend and what you would have to consider to ensure accessibility and accommodating diverse needs. In our previous scenario, the participation of a person with a disability may or may not be unexpected, but it should always be incorporated into planning in order that your event can be generally accessible and designed to be inclusive so that the greatest number of people can feel as welcome as possible. Let's look at a scenario involving a more complex set of accommodations for which you're able to prepare specifically. In an IPRC meeting, a notice must go home in advance advising the parent of the meeting. Forms should be adapted to include a statement such as, if you require additional assistance in order to take full advantage of our upcoming meeting, please advise us by indicating so on the form. When the notice is returned, the school is advised that a person who is hard of hearing will be attending and requires some accommodation.
Hello, Mr. Stein. This is Greg Farrell, principal here at Jennifer School. I just received the notice of meeting form. Thanks for returning it so quickly to me. I noted the indication that you're hard of hearing and you'd appreciate some assistance during the meeting. Okay, great. How may I help you? Thanks, Mr. Stein. I'll email you right away then. Great. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hi, Rose.
Hi, Greg.
I got an email from Mr. Stein today, and he said that he'll be bringing in a sign language interpreter with him. But he also suggested that we have really good light on the teachers who'd be speaking today so that he could read their lips better. So let's just move a few chairs.
Great. And I'm going to turn off that fan noise. It'll be too distracting for all of us.
Great idea. Thanks, Rose. Welcome, Mr. Stein. It's really great to see you here today.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
This is my sign language interpreter. Her name is Rhonda.
Hi, Rhonda. Welcome. This is our school secretary, Mrs. Appa. She will provide support to us today as the meeting proceeds. Since we'll be discussing confidential information about Jennifer, I would ask that your interpreter sign our standard oath of confidentiality. Thank you.
Attract the customer's attention before speaking. Use a normal voice volume and speak facing the customer. Remember to speak to the customer, not the support person. Have a pencil and paper ready if needed. Confirm understanding.
So as we determined today, we'll need to follow up on a number of the decisions that we've made today. What's the best way for me to communicate with you?
Emailing or cell phone texting is the best way to contact me.
Fantastic. I can do both. Thank you very much for coming in today, Mr. Stein. It's very nice to meet you, Rhonda. Thank you.
Let's imagine the same meeting where we must accommodate a person with an intellectual or developmental disability. The principal would make a similar phone call to individualize accommodations where possible. In this case, accommodation would include: don't assume what a person can or cannot do. Use plain language. Make sure the customer understands what you've said. Be direct and ask, Do you understand this? Provide one piece of information at a time. Ask if anything needs to be repeated. Take time. People with some learning disabilities need a little longer time to process information. Provide information in a way that works for the customer. Review additional notes. If you provide resource material, explain what it is. Depression or bipolar disorder affects 10% of all Ontarians. Mental health issues can affect a person's ability to think clearly, concentrate, or remember. The major barrier for people with mental disabilities are the stigma associated with it and a lack of understanding. Imagine how you would prepare yourself for the IPRC meeting in this case. As the meeting proceeds, remember, be confident and reassuring. Listen carefully. Check for understanding. If the person appears to be in crisis, ask them to tell you the best way to help. Remember, the customer's reactions are not connected to you personally as the service provider. This time, a person with physical challenges is visiting the school for a Career Day presentation. Let's listen to the conversation between the principal and the presenter as they plan to accommodate his requirements when he arrives at the school.
Mr. Farrell, I have Mr. Aruda on line 1.
Thanks, Rose. Hello, Mr. Aruda. Thank you for returning my call. We're delighted that you've agreed to speak to our students this Career Day. I understand that you may need some help when you arrive, so I was calling to make sure we have everything you need. 1 second. Yes? Absolutely. For sure. Thank you very much. Look forward to meeting you. Bye-bye.
Hello there.
Hi, welcome to our school. May I help you?
Hi, I'm Andre Aruda. I'm a guest speaker here for Career Day. I was looking for Mr. Farrell.
Yes, Mr. Farrell let us know that you'd be arriving. We made sure to have the ramp clear for you. If you just want to take it on up to the entrance, I'll let Mr. Farrell know that you've arrived.
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Okay. Mr. Farrell, Mr. Aruda is here.
Hello, Mr. Aruda. Welcome to our school today.
Hello, Mr. Farrell. Nice to meet you.
Thanks for being here today and sharing your expertise with our students. The classroom you're going to be working in today is on the 3rd floor. So Hillary will be one of our student ambassadors and she'll take you up to the classroom with the elevator. She'll make sure you have everything you need today to be comfortable.
Okay. Hi, Hillary. Nice to meet you. I guess you're in charge now.
I'll show you to the elevator.
Ask before you help. People have their own way of doing things. Respect your customer's personal space. Don't lean over them or lean on their assistive device, in this case, the wheelchair. Ensure that items such as canes and walkers remain in reach. If you receive permission to move a wheelchair, make sure the person is ready before you move them. Never leave the person in an awkward or undignified position, such as facing a wall. Can you see how these approaches benefit your customers? Respect the dignity of the individual. Avoid making assumptions and listen carefully. Look around you right now. How could you make it easier for a person with a physical disability to move about in your area? Some customers may have problems communicating because of their disability. Cerebral palsy, speech impediment, hearing loss, or other conditions may make it difficult for the person to pronounce words or may cause slurring or stuttering. A person with this type of disability may use a communication board or other assistive devices. Here are a few pointers to assist you with this scenario. Don't assume that just because a person has one disability that they also have another. Give the person whatever time is needed to get their point across. Ask questions that could be answered with a simple yes or no if possible. Don't interrupt or finish the person's sentences. Wait for them to finish. Three million Canadians have difficulty reading conventional text. Vision loss can restrict someone's ability to read signs, locate landmarks, or see hazards. Some people with vision loss may use a guide dog or a white cane, but others may not. Some people with vision loss need to view written material in large print or with the help of a magnifier. With these facts in mind, recognizing varying levels of vision loss, let's review some pointers that, if followed, would make the person with a vision loss more comfortable. Don't assume the individual can't see you. 9 out of 10 people who visit the CNIB have some vision. Identify yourself when you approach and speak directly to the individual. Offer your elbow to guide the person. If they accept, walk slowly. Identify landmarks or other details of the environment to orient the person with a vision loss. Do so as you approach the landmark. If you're giving directions or information, be precise and descriptive. Guide the person to a chair or better location rather than leaving them in the middle of the room. You're probably aware that someone with a vision loss may use a guide dog. You may not be aware that there are many types of service animals who help people with other types of disabilities. Service animals are often easily recognized as they may wear a harness or a sign. You might also be aware that a service animal is helping someone. However, if you encounter in your school or work site someone who has an animal and it's not readily apparent that this is a service animal, it is appropriate to ask for a letter from a doctor or a nurse to be produced indicating the animal is required because of a disability. Service animals, once identified, are to be permitted anywhere the general public has access, unless they're prohibited by health regulations. Remember, members of the general public in normal circumstances have no access to classrooms. If students or staff require service animals, the board procedure for that should be followed. This is Vicky and her dog Vegas. Vegas is not a pet. Vegas is a working dog. That means we have to treat him differently than we do other dogs. This will allow him to work more effectively for the person he supports.
The care and supervision of Vegas is my responsibility, so it is important that you never touch him, talk to him, or make eye contact with him without my permission.
Some people with disabilities that you encounter will be accompanied by a support person. We have seen a support person in our scenarios. A support person could be anyone, but for clarification, the support person is not a school employee, but a supporter to the person with a disability from the general public. A support person might help a person with a disability with a variety of things, from communicating to helping with mobility, or from personal care to medical needs. Remember the pointers from our scenario. Speak directly to the person, not to the support person. When information is exchanged that is confidential, for example with a parent, it is advisable to have the support person sign an oath of confidentiality that the parent gives permission for that to occur. According to the regulation, support persons must be allowed to accompany an individual with a disability to parts of the building where the general public has access. Another support for a person with a disability is the use of assistive devices. Most such devices are personal assistive devices. Examples would include a wheelchair, a white cane, an oxygen tank, or a laptop. The devices belong to the person using them. Treat the personal assistive device as an extension of that person's personal space. If you think of the device in this way, it will help you to react appropriately. For instance, you would respect personal space by not leaning over the person, in the same way you would not lean over the person's assistive device. Some assistive devices may not be noticeable, such as a hearing aid. Once you recognize the device as being used, ask the individual the best way to facilitate their use. Remember the question, how may I help you? If your work environment provides some type of assistive device, such as a sound amplification system or TTY, teletypewriters, it is important to receive training in their use, and the regulation calls for this kind of training. To explain this section, I will use the most obvious example, the elevator. For most of us, an elevator is a convenience, but for some, it is the only way to access parts of a building. From time to time, elevators are unavailable. In a power outage, everyone understands that the elevator is not working. In this case, notification is not necessary. However, let's say the elevator is inoperable due to repair. The general public would be unaware of this disruption in service. The legislation requires that care be taken to provide notice that the device, the elevator, is not working, and the notice should estimate the time of its return to service. To ensure that the notice itself is accessible, you might consider making the notice available in multiple formats, such as print, email, and an audio message on the telephone or website. A plan to deal with an interruption should include consideration for internal and external notification. Who is responsible and who else needs to be involved? Expectations of staff who become aware of a service disruption. Using multiple formats. Using clear language. Notification of return to service. Watch this scenario for a good example.
Hello, Mr. Furrow. Sorry to interrupt. I just want to let you know that the elevator's down, and I will have a sign put up and call the repair guy.
Thanks very much, Frank. Can you also please make sure that there's a sign placed on the front parking entrance of the school?
Okay.
Thanks very much.
I'll get a notice on our website as soon as we're finished here. Oh, I just remembered. The junior division's having a book sale upstairs in the library. We'll have parents and community members going upstairs. I don't believe the elevator will be serviced by then.
Good catch, Rose. I'll ask the teachers to move the book sale to the auditorium stage where the lift is still available. You know, this is a good learning piece. It'll take a bit to reorganize, but there's a natural tie in here to character education. It's a really good, authentic example of what it means to be respectful. Thanks, Rose.
Now that we are more aware and able to do a better job of customer service, we will want to know if we are helping others appropriately. How will we know? The customer service standard requires service providers to have a feedback process to receive comments on the way they provide services to people with disabilities. The feedback process should allow individuals choice in the method they use to provide the feedback, such as in person, by telephone, or in writing. Your school board will have a process for feedback and response. In this way, we can improve our customer service going forward. Thank you for participating in this training session. You've learned about the legislation, who our customers are according to the legislation, the barriers people face to full participation, different types of disabilities and the ways in which you can better support each of them, your role in making people feel welcome and included, some ways to make your environment more accessible. What are you able to improve as a result of what you've learned in this session? Do you need more information? What else would you like to learn? More resources are available. An Accessible Ontario by 2025. The students in today's classrooms will be making their way in the world. These 2 million students and the people who currently support them, the employees and boards of education across this province, will be creating that world. Think about how what we do today to better serve people with disabilities will impact on students, their friends, and their families. Think of the impact of that new attitude on human dignity, understanding, and full participation in schools, communities, the province, and in our country. Children will create the future. Let's help them by setting a great example.